my honor to introduce the president of Miami University, Greg Crawford, to give this year's Alumni Weekend State of the University address. We will do questions afterwards, so we'll go ahead and get started. And again, when we do questions at the end, please wait till we come to you with a microphone. But to get us started, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Crawford.
Well, good morning. Did you like the video? You're probably thinking we have way too much time on our hands here at Miami. They're great dogs. I'll finish with them today as well with a little story. So today I'll give you the state of the university and where we're at and where we're headed. We have a lot of new things going on, and I think you'll be interested in a lot of that, and also some stories about our faculty, staff, and students at the very end. So first, when we've been thinking about our strategic planning process and the future of Miami University, we sometimes look at this graph. And what this graph looks at is growth of a university or growth of an organization as a function of time. And obviously, there's always a point in time in which there's an inflection. It's when you change directions. And that point can come on from various things. It could be a pandemic, or it could be a new strategic plan, or it could be other disruptions taking place, or technology, etc. And so as we were planning, we had an inflection point. We certainly had a big one during the pandemic. But what we wanted to do was create sort of a future for Miami that really created transformative change. And that would mean that we create something new that leapfrogs other people, other institutions, our competition, or it means we want to be evolutionary and keep a linear, continuous progress, growing, growing, and growing. We don't want to be stagnant, or we don't want to be obsolete, and so that's how we sort of thought about all of our strategic planning efforts. Now, to take you back, in 2012, it was the Great Recession aftermath, and universities and institutions and organizations and companies struggled during the 2008-09 Great Recession. And so at that point in time, our plan, which was called Miami 2020, was very, very tactical. And it was exactly what we needed at that point in time. And then it was well before 2020, it was about 2018, and with the Board of Trustees, we decided that we should claim victory over Miami 2020 because we had those elements done. And so we started planning a new plan, which we called Miami Rise, which was launched and approved by our Board of Trustees in 2019. Guess what? There's a pandemic in 2020. But the great news about Miami and all of our board members was they pushed me and my leadership team not to stop what we were doing, to stay on the critical path, because during that 2020 through 2023, other universities were slowing down and stopping things, stopping construction. But they said, figure it out, Greg, which was great, because as the pandemic subsided, we were in just a great place as an institution, which I'll show you today. And so kudos to our board members to really push us hard to keep on that critical path, even in probably the most difficult times of leadership that many of us experienced in our lifetimes through that pandemic. And then it's 2024, and we wrapped it up, and it's really fantastic what we've accomplished, and we started a new one called Miami Thrive. And so today I'm going to give you a little bit of what went on for Miami Rise, so the last 5 years, and then I'm going to give you insight into our new strategic plan, Miami Thrive. So the first is Miami Rise. And the very first recommendation on Miami Rise was to create an honors college to attract the best and the brightest students to Miami University. It's a really phenomenal college. It's led by Zeb Baker there in the front, and he's done an awesome job. But it's been interesting because as we started it back in 2019 and got it moving, we went around the country and looked at other honors colleges so we kind of knew the landscape. We benchmarked. And as we looked at that, we decided we're going to be better than everybody else. So as it got launched, we weren't ranked. We were at over 100, so we weren't on the list. And then year 2, we became in 100. Year 3, we were top 50. And year 4, which is this year, was our 4th year. We were number 6th in the country in the Honors College. Yeah, so phenomenal. And so we're so excited about this. There's 2,000 students. Hello up there. There's 2,000 students. We have a future Miamian up there. It's like, I'm going to go to the honors college. Yeah. And their average GPA is 4.3 something as a cohort. So they're a pretty amazing group. So we're super excited about that. And then entrepreneurship. And you know Miami's been known for this for decades. And in fact, before people even thought you could teach entrepreneurship at a college or university, decades before, Miami was doing it. That's how far ahead they were of the pack. We've been ranked in entrepreneurship now for 17 years in the top 10 in the world. 17 consecutive years. It's really amazing. And so the John Altman Institute for Entrepreneurship kicked it off. It grew and grew and grew. Now we have the Altman Institute, plus we have a whole department to do the academic stuff. Then this year, 2 years ago, we opened up a new uptown behind the Community Arts Center, or for some of you, maybe it was Ox College at that point. There's a building behind it, which is a brand new business incubator, and it was named with a generous donation from the Fishers, Lee and Rosemary, which many of you might know. And so now we have space for our students to go in there and start companies. So we don't have to lose them when they graduate to the right and the left coast or to Chicago or Austin, Texas, but we can keep some of them back here in Oxford. This is Valandria Lash Smith, and she graduated 2 years ago in speech pathology, but then she wanted to be an entrepreneur, and she started a company. She was our first student graduate company in the Lee and Rosemary Fisher College at Elm, and she makes a special shea butter cream for cosmetics and skincare and so forth. So a great story there. And then, of course, if you were in the Prodesi Society yesterday, you saw the new Clinical Health Sciences building over there by Goggin. And so it's just an amazing new space. It was nearly $100 million. It has 3 units in there. It has speech pathology and audiology, our new physician's associate PA program, and also we have nursing. So nursing was a big deal on our regional campus for many years. It's been over 50 years now. And so we leveraged what we knew there, and we started a new Oxford nursing cohort, which has grown and grown and grown. And so it's got great reputation. And in a short few years since the nursing program at Oxford's been opened, it's certainly become the most competitive program here to get into. So we had 156 spots this year for the first year class, and we had 3,500 applications for nursing. So they're the best of the best. And these are simulation mannequins, and they're kind of creepy. So they talk to you, they complain, they argue with you, they do all kinds of cool stuff. And so we train on that. And Stryker, we have a division president at Stryker, which is our alum. He's outfitted this to be all Stryker equipment, so our students get to work on the best of the best high-tech equipment. So it's really amazing if you get a chance to go see it. And then data sciences. If you saw the new McVeigh Data Science building there behind engineering on Talawanda, it's spectacular. It's state-of-the-art. It's got a robotics lab in there. It's got a cybersecurity lab in there. And this is the extended reality stage where you can make movies, anything you want, and do anything you wish with this amazing technology. Our data sciences, we got programs from statistics to business analytics to digital technologies to computer science, and we've seen growth in that area in the last few years from about 1,100 majors to 1,700. So that's going great, and the building is just fantastic as well. And then we wanted to do evolutionary stuff, so we wanted to stick and grow certain areas, and one of those was student excellence. And there's a couple of things you can look at with student excellence. One is the number of national fellowships, Goldwater plus Fulbright plus astronaut, etc. And then the Phi Beta Kappa fraternity. And you can see our numbers there. Last year, in 2023-24, we had the largest number of fellowships at 37 ever. We had 30 this year, but it slowed down from the government, and so there are fewer of them. But this year and last year were our 2 biggest years ever for those top fellowships. But our Phi Beta Kappas have jumped from 91 this year to 262. So we're really happy with how our students are performing out there and competing with all those other universities. And then this one is both evolutionary and transformative. So more than a decade ago, there was a push on this campus to utilize geothermal energy. So basically what that means is that you use the ground as your energy supply or your battery. So in the summer, you pull the cold from the ground. In the winter, you pull the heat from the ground. And you save all kinds of money because it's very efficient. In physics terms, the work function is very big, which is a good news. So we've, in the last decade, have reduced our carbon footprint by more than 50%. And once it's done in front of Millette, that's what those orange fences are for, it'll be another 10 or 15% coming off of it. So we're very excited about that. But what we did on the Western campus, there's now a transformative jump that's going on top of this. And that is Sharon and Graham Mitchell have, with the leadership gifts, created a sustainability park. So come fall on Western campus, we'll have a 2-megawatt solar panel array, which will start knocking off at our foundational base electrical load. So right now with geothermal, that takes care of almost all of our fossil fuels for heating and cooling. So it's free now. And then we'll start knocking off electrical loads with our solar field. So it's going to be very exciting, and you'll be able to see that in action, and you'll be able to walk through it like a park. And I'm losing my voice. I do every Alumni Weekend. But the Pathways program was a program that we created where students come. They're officially regional students, but then they live on the Oxford campus in our residential halls. And that program has been doing great. So this year we have 300 students. We've graduated already our first graduating class of them. So they come here and they have additional wraparound services and help and tutoring and that kind of stuff. And then after a semester or two, they transfer into the Oxford cohort. So that program is going great, and that was one of our strategies. Okay, I'm stuck. And then research. So in 2016, our research enterprise was about $15 million per year. And then this past year, we're at $51 million of external research funding. And so we've been doing great at attracting gifts and grants and so forth from the federal government, corporations, and foundations to support our students in the research lab. So there's some physics majors working on some high vacuum equipment there and laser beams and all kinds of fun stuff. And then a couple of things that are kind of in between our strategic plans. The first one, this is the building, if you've been out to Hamilton, it was the former Champion Paper Building. It's big. It's 400,000 square feet with more than 300,000 usable square feet. So the Butler County Commissioners were phenomenal, and they supported us to buy that building. And so it's going to be a manufacturing hub, and our students are going to have access to all the advanced manufacturing. We already have 30 company partners in there, and it's just fantastic space. And I'm going to announce another partnership today, which is just fantastic. So this is neat. This is one of the robotics labs that you can see, which is a rendering. And the renovations will be done here in the fall to get started. So super exciting. And then Bachelor Hall. I get so excited sometimes. I'm going to have to make it through this, though. So Bachelor Hall had this open space in the middle. You remember that? Now, they told me from the class of 75 that was called the Smoker's Lounge back then. And so that's going to be capped off, and that's what the orange fences are for there. And that's where our humanities and media, journals, and film departments are going to be. And so it's a $72 million investment in the humanities. We don't know of any other school, even 5 decades back, that made that kind of investment into the humanities program. So a big deal. This is a rendering. And I nixed this couch. It looks like the 70s. My mom and dad had one like that. We're not going to put striped couches in there. Now I'm going to transition a little bit to the new plan, to the new things going on at Miami, and show you where we're headed. So that is what we've done. And in the last 5 years, it's been accelerated very quickly. And also, real kudos to our board members who got us going through COVID and didn't let us stop or slow down. But we have a lot of things facing higher ed right now. And this is my physicist view of disruption and disorder. All right, so the demographics element to it is first and foremost probably our biggest concern. We're at a flat spot of the number of high school graduates, and it's going to go down the next 12 years by about 15%. And so we know those numbers. The births have happened, and so those are hard numbers. So there'll be more competition to get students. The next is cost. It's gotten very expensive to go to college, and so families have to come up with more money. If you're going to public institutions around the country, there's far less public funding for it, and so tuition has been going up and up. The next is degrees that we know students today, they're going towards professional degrees. And so what once was degree profiles 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago are very different than today. It's business, it's STEM, it's a lot of these things that are going to drive a degree that gets them into a profession like teaching and stuff like that. So we know that's a big change, and it's hit us as well here at Miami. And then the perception of higher ed, the public opinion is not great. I feel bad about that one too, but it's just not good. It doesn't matter what cohort you pick. You can split it by political parties. You can split it by gender. You can split it by even people that have graduated universities. And both the Gallup poll and Pew studies are showing the reputation right now of higher ed is just not there. And so we have to work on that and recover that. And then technology, AI, and so forth is changing the way we do things. And so we have to work on that as well. So these were elements of sort of what we were thinking we were going to have to work through with and be more innovative as we think about our next strategic plan, Miami Thrive. And we, in a sense, over the last year and a half, turned Miami upside down and shook it to see how we were going to fit into this new world. And so I'm going to share with you some things and elements of Thrive. First, it was probably our biggest effort of engagement of any other thing we've ever done on this campus because we engaged more than 2,000 individuals and stakeholders. We had about 20 different committees. These committees on the left side were things that we were absolutely good at, that we knew were going to keep us moving forward. And then the other 10 areas are things we either had to worry about or we knew we had to improve based on what students were looking for today. And so there was 180 people on committees and 2,000 people with input, and we pulled it all together. Now, we did it thinking this through in 3 ways. We asked ourselves, future back. And so what that meant is looking out 10 or 15 years and asking ourselves, what is this place going to look like then? What are students going to need or want at that point in time? And how do we start preparing today? So one thing we know is that Dayton and Cincinnati are growing together, and Middletown, Hamilton, and Oxford, and so forth, Westchester, all kind of in the middle of that where we have campuses. So that's going to be a big change for us in the future. It'll be a big metroplex, and we're going to be smack dab in the middle of it. The next was present forward. So we love to think about the future, but we also have to think about today, our current challenges, and how we sustain our momentum and forward advancement. And the third area, this sounds bad, but it's not. It's past fulfilling. And we're not saying to keep everything that's old that's not working. This was things such as all these areas that we looked at that made Miami what it was today. And you know, our mantra has always been students first, and that's where we really sort of headed down this path for this new plan. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to show you a few of the new ideas that came out of this planning process, and we're starting to launch this new plan this year. So there was 3 themes. There was transformative ideas, there was commitment to excellence, and then operation efficiency. And these were the 3 areas that we worked in for the various things. I'll give you examples of all of them. So first, the transformative ideas, we always put the students first in this. And so we focused in and around what would be best for our students. So the very first idea that came up was urban bridges. We know many students, they love Miami and the residential campus, but they also want experiences in the cities, whether that be in the summer or maybe a semester away in a U.S. city rather than a semester abroad. And so we got that feedback from students, and so we're looking at 3 areas, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, and we have elements of working there already. But the neat thing about it is that Ohio did make big investments in those 3 cities, and they're called innovation districts, and so they each have different elements to it. So Cleveland has quantum computing, which I'll come back to. They also have the Federal Reserve, which is a great connection for us. Columbus is government. They're also top in fashion. Now, when I go to the State House, and I go a lot to advocate for resources for Miami, and it's hard for me to envision that fashion is a thing in Columbus. So anyway, there's that. And then Cincinnati, aerospace and manufacturing, healthcare, it's big here as well. We do a lot with entrepreneurship now in Cincinnati. We have done some pilot things in Columbus with Ohio Health with our nurses. And I'll tell you about an exciting thing going on in Cleveland, which is big for Miami in the future. So we're calling this, the metaphor is kind of urban bridge, so that we're making a bridge so our students can have access to these cities in the summers and internships and co-ops and different things like that. So we're super excited about that. And then we've always been pretty good at experiential learning, but our students really wanted to do more of it. And the very cool thing that happened, as a positive outcome from COVID is that we did some things online and we got really good at it. Now, it was interesting from the standpoint of that students really wanted to be back in person. They didn't want to be online. But we've also learned how to use those online technologies to do sort of the more mundane things where students can learn on their own before they come to class. Things that won't need the extra help or explanation before they come to class. And then that opens up more time in the classroom for discussion, problem solving, Socratic teaching methods, studio teaching where you get your hands on equipment and moving it forward. But what we did is we really focused on leadership here. And so we decided that our experiential learning had to be 4 years long. And so starting next year, when we come out with this, students can take a pathway, whether it's industry, global readiness, academic readiness for like research or leadership, and they'll have 4 years of ways in which they can engage in a very practical, hands-on manner, such that it complements their theoretical work in the classroom. And then we have a shorter rendition of this. It's called CELS, so Career Experiential Learning Leadership Seminars. And that'll be shorter in time frame, but we'll start to do a lot of focus on leadership. And the third area is the hallmark experience. So whether it's research or whether it's working as an RA, we want everyone to have that big hallmark experiential learning experience and to reflect upon it. So we'll put in formal mechanisms so they can do that. And then this one was kind of cool, professional development for faculty and staff. And so we often take sabbaticals and such at other universities and do different things. But they actually proposed that, what about if we go take a sabbatical or 4 weeks at a company and then learn something there and bring that back to the classroom? Wouldn't that be cool? And so we'll be working on that kind of professional development for both faculty and staff. So this is very exciting for us because it's building upon what we've already had strength in. And then this is the Arena District. And so Millett Hall has been around for a long time, right? For the 60s. And so we are sitting on a very large bill exceeding $80 million to actually renovate it. And it's not something you can sell to donors. If anybody out there would want to buy an HVAC and put your name on it, we got the HVAC for you. Or a roof, but it's not going to be able to do. So we decided that we'd look for different ways to build something new and also get it back on campus in a way that makes sort of an economic development district in the area. So we put together a committee. We got all kinds of feedback. We put together a committee of faculty and students, staff, and alumni, and we looked at various sites. And so right now, the number one site we're exploring, this is Cook Field. And so right here is 83 coming in. And then this is Patterson Avenue in the front there. And then back there in that direction would be the Farmer School. And so you can see it's pretty spectacular on this rendition. And so we're in the fundraising phase of this right now to see if we can make this happen. And then furthermore, it's going to be very student-centered. And so inside it's going to be all organized around the student experience and giving them really cool access to the games and so forth. We also want a parallel process so that we can bring concerts back to this area, and also that we can do theater and performances and so forth in there in front of much, much bigger audiences. So that's kind of the plan where that's at. The renditions look great. There's a lot of support, and there's a long way to go. And then once we secure and we pull the trigger on this and say we're going full steam ahead, it'll take about 3 years to complete. So looks good, and that was a big one. And then the neighborhood quads. So this is interesting. We've always been very good at what we call the living learning community. And so students can go in there and it can be in a pre-med community and live in the same hall as other pre-med majors, nursing, entrepreneurship, etc. But what we weren't getting was a mixing, what was going on. And so the new idea here, what we're going to do is let students come in and then have broader themes such that we get a lot of majors, and so people are doing a lot more transdisciplinary thinking and interacting in more ways with other disciplines. So creativity is one example, and that would bring together entrepreneurs, the arts, emerging technology, business and design, engineering, and also our sports leadership and management, and really mix up and do more mixing and cross-fertilizing these different degree programs in our halls. And so we'll be restructuring that. And the second thing that we found and heard from the students is that they oftentimes were in one living learning community and they wanted to live with somebody else. It's always one of those things. So they can live wherever they want, and then we can let them be in multiple ones of these quads. And so if they want to engage in one over here and one over there, they're more than welcome to. So we're going to open this up in a big way and have more broad thematic sequences rather than the narrow kind of more discipline-specific ones on campus. So that's very exciting. And then we have a lot of rapid technological change. I'm going to talk about quantum computing later, and I mentioned we already feel really good where we're at with data science because we have the new McVeigh building and all the facilities and the significant growth of students in those majors. The one where we wanted to work on that came out in the new plan was artificial intelligence. And so we're going to be building and bolstering that area in a big way. First, there'll be training for everybody to use it, in their work. So faculty and staff and how we use it during the day. Our new Workday Enterprise system has more than 60 AI engines running in the background. So we're already engaged with it in a big way. And then we're going to have the training for the students, which will be just how to use it. Everyone needs to know how to use it. It'll be integrated across many different classes. And then there will also be degree programs with that education. And we just launched one in engineering that'll come out if you want to build AI engines, you can do it that way. And then research, we'll be bolstering research and hiring faculty with this experience across all the different areas and departments. And so this is very exciting, and we're thinking about this now more holistically since we have quantum and we have data, and now the AI is coming in, and they're all connected because the data science fuels AI, and then what quantum computing is going to bring to AI is going to be just earth-shattering and mind-shattering as this comes on. And the new term for that is quantum AI, and so there's a lot more coming there. Now, the business school it's over 25% of campus in terms of students at the undergraduate level. And one of the things and elements of it is that students, it's a direct admit, so you have to apply to Farmer and get in as a first year. And the interest level is this much higher than what we can actually do. And so what Farmer is going to launch is they're going to come out, this is essentially our dual degree. And so it's called X plus Business. And so you put together two areas and you essentially get a dual degree. So if you want to go psychology plus business, then the industry you go into could be neuroscience. English plus business, executive communication. Biochemistry plus business, pharmaceutical sales. And so it's a way to combine two majors and then also kind of hit an industry area that you're interested in going into. And so we believe this is going to be big as this gets launched in the coming year, but it will be a way for other students to access the Farmer School's excellence and take things that complement their other degree option. So we're very excited about this one. And then if you haven't seen it yet, oh my goodness, in engineering, it's the brand new smart manufacturing factory that we have. It's just amazing. And so we were very fortunate. The president of Mitsubishi Electric Automation, which is in Chicago, the American branch, is a Miami alum. And Mr. Somerville, and he was able to make this all happen for us. So if you can go there and see this today, it's awesome. It's just amazing the access that students have. So if you're interested in control systems and manufacturing, et cetera, you can go there and learn all this. And we have AI-driven programs that also the students get access to. This just opened a month ago, and it's super impressive. Now, operational efficiency, it's one thing we put a lot of work into here at Miami to be the most efficient school in the country, which we're often ranked that way. And so we did this. There's a lot of data here, but I'll just kind of explain it. So no matter if you look at finance or human resources or information technology or marketing communications, what they did is they assess how you do with respect to maybe what you spend $100 million on for FTEs, full-time equivalents. And they look at that. Well, in any event, when we looked at this, we always find ourselves at the lower end of the peer group or just one above the lower end of the peer group. So this suggests that we are very efficient with resources. In fact, our consulting firm was super impressed with this comparison with other universities. So we really feel good the way in which we're strategic, we stay on the critical path, and the way we spend resources to get it to our students, because we're very efficient that way. So this came up really good. We don't have to do much here. We'll continue to get better, but we did very well across the board. But what came up is a new effort for us. That's around partnerships. We have some great partnerships. We have a partnership with the CVG. So the Cincinnati Airport actually operates Oxford International Airport. That's a joke. International? Okay. So they came in and we got all kinds of cool things cooking with them. We ran it for years. We weren't airport people. So we partner with them and they come in and it's just changed what we got going on there. So it's very exciting. The Lilly, I want to talk about that, Lilly Leadership Institute. And then also Stryker, I told you about what they did there with the new Clinical Health Sciences building. So it's very exciting. But one thing we know is that when we partner with somebody, the whole of the partnership is always bigger than the sum of the parts, and so you get better. And we have a paper group, which we've kept it for years, and there's only 3 schools that do it anymore. It's Miami, Maine, and Auburn. And everyone gave it up years ago, but guess what? Boxes for Shipping is back, and so it's now huge. We have 42 partners. Our Work Plus program, where students go to school free. They have to work part-time in a company. We have 20 partners. Our hub, which is our manufacturing hub, we already have 30 partners. Early College Academy, where students come in as juniors in high school, and they graduate with a high school diploma and an associate degree when they're 18. We have 10 school systems. And then CADS is our data science. We have 4 companies that partner with us there. But we thought that we just needed to do more in this area. That came out of the plan, that this is great, but we need to sort of amplify this by an order of magnitude. And so we're going to create a partnership office, and it's headed by Andy Durajaye, the brand new vice president here. And it's going to be with stewardship and working with those folks and also strategic initiatives. So we're very excited about that. And we're going to break it up into this. And Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 doesn't mean any one company is more important than the other. It's just how broad they are in terms of how they interact with the university. So Tier 1 partners would be those that have connections across many divisions, units, and departments. Actually, the whole university. And we'll have several of those. I'll give you some examples. The next is Tier 2, and that may be business and engineering, or it may be teaching and something else, but it'll just be a couple of different units. And then Tier 3, a company that has a very specific need and they're working with one department or one college. And so we're going to think of it this way and kind of grow out what we're doing now and really push that forward. And so I'm going to come back to partnerships in a little bit, but we have a lot of exciting things going on there to announce. And then at our regional campus in Hamilton, if anybody's from Hamilton and you look at kind of the tale of a city that saw a lot of economic downturn when paper left and the safe company left and the insurance left, et cetera, they turned it on, and with great leadership, that city is an example of what economic development can look like if you're innovative. And so on the Hamilton campus, we're going to focus in on creating more of a polytech because students are going in to these areas, and these are our big areas: business and commerce, engineering, health sciences, and there's a few others that are more professionally driven. And we're going to drive it in that way because it's very different. The regional campuses were once, decades ago, a place where you start and transfer in to Oxford, and it's just very different today. All 4 years are there. And so we're going to focus in on that, and then having a Global Miami Plan themes that focus in on the general education of critical thinking, ethics, analytics, and also writing and communication. And then the one big partnership we have, it's been very cool in the manufacturing hub in Hamilton. We have Butler Tech, which is a career high school, which is now in the same building as us. And it's interesting because career high schools at one point, they'd graduate and they wouldn't go to college. And it's just changed. Now, Butler Tech is one of the top in the country. It's the top in Ohio career high school. So we partner with them. They're coming in using all that manufacturing equipment. They're bringing in partners as well. And then students can start there and graduate with an associate, a bachelor's, even a master's degree as well. Or they can jump out and go in the workforce and jump back in. And so we'll be redefining what we do in Hamilton across this area. There's been some states that have been super successful: Indiana at Purdue, Arizona at ASU, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, and Florida at Florida Polytech, where they created that have all been their biggest growth areas. And so we expect the same in this case. And then commitment to excellence. The one element that we really do good in is the 4-year graduation rate. But guess what? The industry standard for 4-year institutions is the 6-year graduation rate. And I never really understood that, so we're pushing and advocating to get this 4-year number in the rankings, because this means a lot if you finish 2 years earlier than your other counterparts. You're getting a job earlier, you're in medical school earlier, whatever it may be. It's very different. So Miami is 14th in the country with the top 4-year graduation rate amongst publics. This is a really great ranking for us. Again, not in the rankings, but time to completion. You can see a Miami student's 4.12 years on average, and so that means that a lot are finishing before 4 years, which is fantastic. And then our retention rates, this is 43 amongst publics, but there's big ties everywhere, so if you jump up 1 point, you're already in the 30s, 2 points, you're already in the 20s. And so we always work on these numbers because students are first to us. And so really great things going on there. Now, our sustainability efforts, I get really excited about this because we've done great, and it's been the vision of people long before I got here doing this work with our geothermal and now our solar park. But there's ways in which you're ranked. And in 2013 and 2016, we were ranked silver, and then 19 and 22, we were ranked gold. And so there's only a handful of, there's 4,000 plus institutions, and only a few make these, few hundred make these two top categories. The top category is platinum, and if we get that, you need to have a score of 85, and there's only 13 institutions in the world that have that. So we're really working on that to achieve that greatness or that excellence. And these are a few things that we have to work on. Our engagement across campus, so that we do more with staff training. Our operations, we do well there, but code for suppliers, things like that. And then also academics, department course offerings and such. And believe it or not, every department on campus has something in sustainability. So we're at 100% there. So we're really excited to push towards this. We'd love to see it in 2025, and if we miss it, we'll get it in 2028. And then a PhD in engineering is coming, and so what we're going to do is make it more transdisciplinary. They've only had a master's degree there, but a very strong graduate master's program. And so faculty members and such wanted to get more PhD students, and so we got this created, and it's great. And they're also pulling in physics. So the physicists now have a place to actually train graduate students as well. And so it's a much broader way to think about a PhD than typically other schools do. So that's how we're going to enter in that competitive space, is through a breadth of things, not necessarily a deep, narrow dive into one department or another. And now, I want to talk about something super exciting that's going on at Miami. And before I start this, I wanted to show you something, and I know many of you know this, but it just puts us in the right mindset for what I'm going to talk about next. And that is, you probably remember the movie The Graduate. Do you remember the movie? Yes, it was 1967. Dustin Hoffman, Benjamin, was the young man who graduated college and was clueless of what he wanted to do, if you remember. He gets home, and his mom and dad throw a party with all his friends. He's not happy about this, right? And so he's walking around the party and so forth, and one of the parents' friends puts their arm around him. And he wanted young Benjamin to remember one thing about his career. What was that one word? Oh my gosh, you guys are good. That's fantastic. So what I wanted to do before I talk about the next piece of it, I wanted just to play this to put you in the mindset of, you know, in 67 it was plastics, and this is the future.
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Quantum computing.
So it's changed. So quantum computing's an interesting technology, and if you think about classical computing, there's this law, it's called Moore's Law, and it means that every 2 years, technology gets to be so good that you can pack more transistors on a chip that's the same size as it was 2 years ago, so the computer gets more powerful. But it never sort of gets that much more powerful. It always goes up, but at some point, if you have a big problem you're trying to solve, we call it the problem size n here. At some point, you're still taking years, decades, or centuries to compute things. We have problems like that today that we just can't compute on classical computer. Well, the quantum computer comes in, and it uses these great principles of physics, of entanglement, superposition, interference, things that were once science fiction, now to be used in computing spaces, which speeds it up in real time. And so what once took decades or centuries, even millenniums, takes now, and you can do it in real time. So it's really exciting. There's only a handful in the world, and guess what? We got one of the most powerful ones in Cleveland, Ohio. And so the state of Ohio put in $550 million alongside the Cleveland Clinic's investments to get a quantum computer to focus only on healthcare. And so it's a very exciting time. So in medicine, if you use quantum computing, there's all kind of things you can do with it, which is what the Cleveland Clinic is doing. First, it's basic research. So things that are so basic that sometimes they don't know if you have an application or not. But they're looking at protein folding in our bodies, or more importantly, protein misfolding, and that's when it's connected to diseases, such as Alzheimer's, cardiac disease, etc. And you can actually now do this and compute these experiments on a computer, which once took decades. You couldn't even do it. And so now they can do that in real time. The next area is we call translational research. And translational research means getting something from the bed to the bedside. That's what it means, that simple. And it's called in silico experiments they're doing. So that means in silicon, so in the silicon chip, they're doing drug discovery. So rather than doing all this empirical experimental work, the idea is you use quantum computers to crunch the 10 to 20-year time frame of developing a drug and get it to the marketplace sooner, which means cheaper. So that's very exciting. And the third is right now, right here for you and I, precision medicine, sometimes called personalized medicine. And that is that your doc in your office can have your DNA sequencing there right with you. And so that he treats every human being as a unique person. Everyone is unique, very unique. And we don't have that now, but now you can do this in real time. And so these are three areas from very basic research to brand new applications that are going on at the Cleveland Clinic. And so the Cleveland Clinic was looking to build out the workforce for this new area because they really want Cleveland to be the place where quantum computing happens, not just using it, but also to attract the startup companies and stuff that are building new quantum computers. And so they had to sort of reach out to a university and figure out who was going to do the first degree programs for them, and they chose us. And so it is phenomenal. I mean, we have a great brand, and they're number one in the world. And so when you put these two together, it's very powerful. And what works well, an alumni was, you may know Don Cinco. He loves Miami, and he worked at Cleveland Clinic forever. He loves Cleveland. He's retiring a year and a half ago. He says, come see everybody at Cleveland Clinic. I want to introduce you to everybody. So I go there, and after the first day, I knew it was going to be awesome. So I'm walking out of the CFO's office at Cleveland Clinic, and this guy says, love and honor. And it was the associate CFO. Okay? I'm like, well, this is cool. And then I go to my next meeting, and it's in the Chief Innovation Specialist office, the VP. And then we're talking about this. He's like, oh, by the way, my daughter's a graduate, and my son is in your MBA program right now. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I go to the next office, and I meet the very famous Dr. Pepe. And he's famous for his 2017 surgery where he did the first face transplant in the world. And we learned all about the team and everything that went into that. And then he says, can I come see you in Oxford next week? But I'm like, okay, but nobody really comes to see me in Oxford, you know? He's like, oh, my two boys go there. And so I'm like, I get back, I'm so excited, and I go to our advanced office. I'm like, how many? This is not coincidence. This is just too many. So we had some 400 people that work at Cleveland Clinic that are alums. So we knew we had the connectivity, and then we got in with them and made the first quantum computing bachelor's degree, which you see there. It's very cool. It has all the new kind of computing that's based on quantum and quantum physics. Then they learn about bioinformatics and also genomics and proteomics, so that computing is something they can stand toe-to-toe with the researchers. And then, of course, they have entrepreneurship because we're so good at it. And the Cleveland Clinic was adamant that you need to make sure they understand entrepreneurship because they're going to be creating and inventing all kinds of new things. So that is off and going, and we'll have a physical presence in Cleveland. And also, we are co-locating, really interesting, so in that new manufacturing hub in Hamilton, Ohio Means Jobs is coming in, and they're setting up shop. And so those individuals that are coming through that are either unemployed, looking for jobs, pivoting industries, changing direction in their career, they can be sent right to Miami there in Hamilton and get a certificate or a degree program. And so this is going to be a great pipeline for us. So we're very excited. And did you hear that we're the educational partner of the Cincinnati Bengals? So this was fantastic news. And so students and so forth will have access to internships and projects, entrepreneurship, lectures and stuff. And so we got a great plan and a rollout here very soon. Paul Brown, the cradle of coaches, was our alum, the quarterback, graduated in 1930. But if you understand his history, it was one of the most innovative coaches ever. You know, the first thing that he did was the draw play. Their quarterback and running back, they're going back, they ran into each other, the ball flipped up, and then the running back catches it and he runs. So he's like, oh my gosh, we should make a play out of this. And so we did, this make a lemonade out of a lemon thing. And then he did the first face mask, he had a patent with a couple of his colleagues. He put the first radio in the quarterback's helmet. Nobody knew when he did it. And so they outlawed it originally, and then it actually didn't come back in. That was in the 50s. It didn't come back until 76, the year which I think roughly when he retired. And then it came back into college football only last year. That's how innovative this guy was. And then he had the first playbook that he made the players study and so forth, and just really cool stuff. So it's great to have that legacy of Paul Brown, who started the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals and coached. And it's just fantastic. So we're really happy with this new Who Day partnership. And as I finish up today, I want to give you some examples in the next 5 to 7 minutes. But we did this plan. It was big, and it's bold, and it's a lot of change. I get it. And as we went through this, there were so many exciting things that were coming out around leadership. And we looked at our alums, whether it was corporate, entrepreneurs, coaches, government officials, military leaders. We knew that we had leadership galore here, so we're going to lean into it. And then we also looked on our campus, and we have leadership programs, sustainable leaders, competition leaders, impactful leaders. And I'm going to give you a few quick examples. Are you ready? Yes? All right. So first, empowering programs. The Lilly Leadership Institute, Lilly Pharmaceuticals, run by Louise Mormon, who, by the way, was in the 1975 class last night. So she runs it and does a fantastic job. There's 55 students in there now, and since its beginnings in 2012, it's trained over 250 students in the STEM disciplines to be leaders. We have ROTC on this campus, and there's our 3 ROTC leaders, Captain Lamphere, Colonel Umholtz in the U.S. Air Force, and Colonel Stanfield in the Army. And since ROTC started back in the 40s, Miami's trained over 3,000 military leaders. And so we're really excited about that. And then we have the Center for Business Leadership, run by Megan Gearhart, a professor in Farmer School of Business. And they have about almost 60 students per year. And since this started in 2016, they've trained over 250 students in the leadership of business. And so it's really a great program. Then Kimberly Vance in the Cliff Alexander Office for Fraternity and Sorority Life does a lot of things. There's all the Greek life stuff, but also the Wilks Leadership Institute. And she does leadership programs for about 1/3 of our students in any given year. And so they get a lot of leadership. So we do a lot of training with leaders on this campus, which I think helps them, once they graduate, jump off and take on responsibility sooner. And then sustained leaders. Lisa Alram's a professor in business in the Farmer School of Business. She is a top supply scientist in the world. She also just won a Fulbright 2 years ago, was in Finland for the year, and she just recently won the WISE program, Women Impacting Supply Chain Excellence. And so she is, we call her the legend. She does great stuff around supply chain, and it's fantastic from the standpoint of we had a great supply chain program, and before COVID, the average person didn't know what supply chain was. And now everyone does, and so it's a very popular area. And then Daryl Baldwin, the director of the Miamia Center, he's brought in a $2.1 million award this year from the Mellon Foundation, and $6 million since 2014. And he does a lot with Native American languages. He brought back the Miamia language, but he also works on the national level for the Breath of Life to help other tribes do the same. And then Dominic Konkowitz is a chemistry, and he is an American Chemistry Fellow. There's only about 2% of chemists in the world that achieve that level. He's a Royal Society winner for his polymer work, and he's got 5 active grants right now, over $2.2 million. So a great leader on campus. Then Katia Del Rio Zonas. This is called a newt. It's a little salamander type of thingy doodad. And it's interesting because if you poke their retina and you blind them, the darn thing grows back 2 weeks later. And so they're trying to figure out for humans what that stem cell process regeneration is. So she works on that. And she's got not just one National Institute of Health grant, which is hard to get one in your career. She's got 2 simultaneously. So a great leader there. And then Gary Lorigan in chemistry's been continuously funded from the NIH. And he works on protein membrane synthesis, protein folding, protein misfolding, which I talked about. And he uses what's called electron paramagnetic resonance or nuclear magnetic resonance, another technique where you you agitate what you're looking at, and then you actually see how it responds, and then you can make predictions about its structure. So really cool stuff there. We have amazing facilities in this area. Hello. And then Lindsay Schachenbach-Regelli, she just wrote a book, was published by the University of Chicago Press, one of the top presses in the world, and it's called Flowers, Guns, and Money. It's about Joel Roberts' Poinsett. So he was a statesman back in the 1800s, and it was interesting because if you look at the lens of today's political landscape, Republican, Democrat, and you try to map it onto back then, it's really interesting. You got to read the book because it's more like this than it is like this today. So there's that, and also a lot of it's around, at that point in time, statesmen were also very working this thing for their own self-interest, so there's a whole piece of it on that. But Poinsett, when he had his duties in Mexico for the U.S., he sent back clippings of the poinsettia, which is how it's got its name. They named it after him. So it was appropriated by him back to the U.S. So we have all those things during Christmas. And then our competitive leaders, we had a great year in sports. So Carolyn Condit and Iñaco Puzo were inducted into the Cradle of Coaches Association this year. Carolyn Condit, 40 years as the head coach of volleyball. 800 career wins. It's unbelievable. I gave her an honorary doctorate degree for her work, and it was funny. Somebody said to me, like, everyone always has feedback for me. And they're like, what if this sets a precedent where you got to give all coaches honorary degrees? I'm like, if you got 800 wins, I'll give them an honorary degree. There's no problem with that. Just an amazing individual, and really how she trained and educated. Her athletes were far more than athletes. They were, her character was amazing. And then Iñaco, the field hockey coach, it's funny, it's 9 years in a row he's won the MAC championship. And unbelievable. And we have a presidential coin we give people that win the MAC championship. And so it's funny, it was like the seniors there, some of them got 4 or 5, and the one young lady says, this is like poker chips. And then Chuck Martin, there's Snoop Dogg Bowl. And so there's Snoop. No, yeah. It was a fun bowl game, but Chuck this year became the most winningest football coach in Miami history. So that was great news in his long career here. And we absolutely love the Snoop Dogg Bowl. Last night, the 50th reunion, that team in 1974 went on to 10-0-1. They won the MAC championship, of course. It was the first year of the head coach, Dick Crum, and then they beat the Georgia Bulldogs 21-10. And so watch the Red Hawks this year. We got a great schedule, and we're gonna give back to that excellence, I think, because we've been just growing our excellence in football ever since. And then Samantha, they call her Sam Pitter, the brand new swimming and diving coach. Her first year, she wins the conference championship in men's swimming. So she's also the second coach here to actually female coach to coach a men's team. So we've been way out on that one. And then Katie Nenquist and Sammy Levine. Sammy Levine's the assistant coach. Katie's the head coach. Her first year, she won the National Collegiate Championship for synchronized skating. So our only national champions. Very cool. And Ricky Rosas says the women's tennis this year. And Ricky was also won the MAC regular season. And he was also coach of the year. So we had lots of coaches of the year. And then baseball, big turnaround. It's Coach Smiley's right here, his second year, and he won both the MAC regular season and the MAC tournament. And so just amazing. And also MAC Coach of the Year. So, oh my gosh, another one. And then Maddie Gardner-Colgate, her first year in softball, she wins the MAC regular season, the MAC championship tournament, and she is also Coach of the Year in her first year. So it's very cool. And then here's a couple of students. Kat Danzowitz, Slovak, and Zach Baun. They both won the MAC Medal of Excellence Award. So one student athlete, male, female, get it from the MAC each year. So they won that. But at the same event, that's not what they're holding. but we won, as an institution, both trophies for men's excellence and women's excellence in sport, the Reese and Jacoby Trophy. So they add up all your wins in competition space, and then somebody takes home, you know, a trophy. But we took home 2. I didn't do this, but I wanted to do it because I felt kind of like strange. Because you know, we had 2 trophies, and you know, we always compete president to president, who's better. And so we had these 2 trophies, and I almost did it, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't. But I was going to ask the OU president to help me take them to the car. And then impactful leaders. Molly Duffy just graduated this year. She created the democracy bus to take students to go vote. Just an amazing student, also won a award here in Ohio for her student activism. Mark Scott, a professor in electrical engineering, is a National Academy of Inventors senior member, just announced. It's because he has a patent here in academia, and he also has student names on patents, which is very interesting. And then Will Brindley and Babs Dreyer, our ASG, they were phenomenal. They're not just photogenic, but they did everything this year. They were at every single event. I've never seen such a participation of a team like this. They were unbelievable. And then Cece Mainkin, she's a 2024 astronaut scholar, which is hard to get. And then she's a Goldwater scholar, which is hard to get. And then she has all kinds of publications in her area of her degree of biochemistry, which is hard to do as an undergraduate. And then, of course, she's also a double minor in music. So, double major, sorry. Yeah, she's fantastic. And then, talking about impactful and sustainable leadership, I wanted to call out Cody Powell and Don Van Winkle. Cody was here on the first geothermal efforts and getting this all going. And then Don has been working on the sustainability efforts there in front of Millette Hall. So just fantastic stuff going on. And then thank you to my 3 colleagues who did the new plan and ran it all. Brent Schock, who's been at Miami more than 30 years and is a graduate. Melissa Tomlinson, who is in Farmer School of Business and economist. And Annie Durajai, who's our new vice president for partnerships. They did an amazing job with Thrive. And I'm going to end with this. But I don't know if you saw this, but this was the #1 play on ESPN this year. Our men's basketball team had a phenomenal year. Head coach Travis Steele has been really transformed this, and we got 2nd in the MAC this year. It was a heartbreaking loss at the end, but what a year. But this was at one of the games, and it was one of our dunks, and it was the #1 play on ESPN.
Well, Toledo versus Miami of Ohio. Ian Elmer throws down, monster dunk, one-handed slam over 2 guys. Miami, Ohio wins 92-80. Woo.
I put the projectile motion equation up there for you. But it was just a fantastic year, and we had a big crowd that game. It went ballistic. It was unbelievable. So, well, I'm going to end with the dogs again. And so everyone asked how we got Charlie. And so Charlie came to us about 6 weeks ago, and his owner passed away, and they wanted us to sort of foster him for a little bit until they could get pictures on the web and then find a permanent owner. And then it came time where we had to get some pictures of him about 4 weeks later and to see if somebody wanted to adopt them. And then we're doing that, and Renata comes into the kitchen, I'll never forget, and she's like, I think I love him. So we adopted Charlie. Not that we needed yet another dog, but he's been a great boy. So, well, I just wanted to share all this with you. I know I went on about 10 minutes too long. I thought we'd have time for questions, but I can certainly hang around. I'm going to end it now. And if you want to come up here and ask me anything you want, you can do that. Otherwise, I know there's a lot of other events you want to get to, but thanks so much, and thanks for coming back to Miami. And it's really great to have you all here.